Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining this knowledge session focused purely on digital transformation. I think the market is changing dramatically, and I think I know that many of you would be actually going through some bit of a challenge as well. I myself am going through that challenge, right? I think just before the session, my house was actually getting sanitized because family is also down right now with that same problems. And I think as I speak, I'm also feeling the same symptoms. I was looking at my family and I'm having the same. So I think we'll go through it, but I think what we also know that COVID generically has been a big influencer on digital transformation. I think Omicron will be even bigger because it's not leaving anyone, right? I think last time, and where the apartment I'm staying in, we have 1,200 apartments and 140 are impacted as of now in Mumbai, right? So it's that bad. So I think obviously, as far as I can see, digital will keep growing and the frameworks will keep growing. And BFSI, as being part of it, I think will be even more affected, and we need to be digitized completely because we don't deliver physical goods. We don't deliver anything. We don't take you from one location to another location. We don't do anything which other segments do. What we do is basically simplify your life, offer you a loan if you are trying to buy a house, allow you to pay if you want to buy something. So we are in that business, right? To enable your business. That's largely what BFSI is. And I think to get this going, we have the best of the speakers and best of the knowledgeable people from the industry here. We have Rahul sir here, Neeraj sir here, and we will quickly introduce each one of them and take it from there. But before we start, a quick perspective from my side on digital transformation, and I can tell you that it is hard, very hard for most classical organizations to do it. We have seen largest of the banks taking quite a number of years, maybe a minimum of, let's say, 5 years to reach anything of significance. I also know that I can tell you that people like Federal Bank are doing a phenomenal job. HDFC is doing a phenomenal job. There are a lot of people have taken this role slightly differently and going digital really well. There has been a great work done on the servicing side, and we have seen many of them going digital on the servicing side and saying that 80% of my transactions are fully digital. But I think the game is actually not about servicing. Game is about building revenues, competing. I think collaborating with the branches, collaborating the existing sales channel, and still digitizing the whole journey of the customer perspective. If I look at the lending side of it, and we were looking at data which came out a few days back from RBI, only 2% of the lending of banks is digital by nature. And I'm sure when I say this number would have been also bloated by adding some use cases which were part digital, part physical, and blah, blah, blah. Whereas for NBFC, it is 11%. Now, technically, the number is 2%, right? I think our perspective is that 2% should become more like a 30 to 40% in maybe next 2 to 3 years. And that also on the digital channels of the bank. So banks or NBFC should have 30% of business running pure digitally. Almost similar size as bank. And I'm sure you must be asking, where is the 40% gone, right? 30% from branch and 30% from your own digital channels. I think rest 40% will come primarily from embedded finance, from a use case like somebody buying on Flipkart or somebody buying on, or maybe the MSME there on Udaan and all. I think the transaction will happen on those sites, and NBFCs and banks will have to enable their journeys. On top of that, they can't expect an independent journey saying, finish your work there, come to me and then talk to me. I think that world is going to go away. So we will have to work with three different elevated areas. We have to ensure that we work embedded in the domains wherever the customers are. They can be e-commerce, they can be edutech, they can be in travel industry, and we need to be embedded there from a payment, lending, whatever perspective. We need to have our own digital journeys which are so good that they become relevant. If we don't become relevant, what will happen to banking industries? What will happen to the wealth mutual fund industry? Whereas nobody goes to buy a mutual fund on the mutual fund website, right? They're dead. They always buy from some other advisor who's offering it, like a Grow or IndWealth or somebody else, and nobody goes there. So if we don't offer it well enough, somebody will go away. And of course, I'm not saying that branches will die. Branches are not going to go away. There is a segment of customers which are going to get service from the branches. How do you digitize their journeys, and how do you ensure that if somebody submits a document there, even if physically, you don't irritate him, kill him with the 10-day turnaround time, and nobody cares about it, right? 10-day turnaround time. I don't think. I mean, I today I'm sitting in home, and BMC came to my house for cleanup, right? BMC can move faster than banks. Than if they just realized only, I think yesterday, called it yesterday itself, saying that I need appointment tomorrow. They came and cleaned up my house as well. So if that is possible, I think the banking industry has to move faster, even in the physical world. With this, I stop. Maybe I'll go ahead with Rahul sir first with you. Maybe your perspective on digital transformation will be good for us to understand. So maybe you can introduce yourself as well as give your first view on digital transformation and how it can help.
Yes, thank you, Samir. So, to give you my background, I work with HDFC Bank in digital lending arena. Apart from digital lending, I have other portfolios as well, like regulatory reporting, and I manage all 4 bureaus of India.
Rahul, your voice is a bit feeble. Maybe you need to be a bit closer.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. So I look after digital lending piece from credit strategy unit, and my unit designs various processes and come up with IT solutions for digital lending. This is one particular vertical under me. Another vertical manages 4 bureau relationships and then related regulatory reporting to all these bureaus of India. This is my overall broad background, and I have worked with now top 3 private banks of India in lending, in driving digital projects. So this is my quick background. As you say, Samir, yes, digital lending arena will quickly change, but the adoption is not so fast. There are various reasons why adoption is not so fast. And if you ask me what is the horizon I look at is approximately 4 to 5 years. The reasons being the inherent structure of the banking industry. There where I see the issues coming up. If you broadly categorize the banking structure, and I'm focusing only on lending arena, you can correlate the same thing with liabilities also. If you overall see the banking arena, there is huge portfolio of PSU banks. Another huge portfolio or huge share is with top few private banks. Then there is significant chunk of cooperative banks which are, which has, or RRBs which have reached till rural areas. And then we have this new banking concept, fintechs which are coming in, etc. Now, the agility with which the majority of banking sector, they have to introduce digital banking and digital lending solutions, that is primary concern. If you see the history and evolution of digitization, mostly all PSUs and primarily few private sector banks, they have come up with their lending systems or core banking systems in the period of, let's say, 2000 to 2005. Over a period of time, these systems now are becoming obsolete. There is importance to improve or replace or evolve these systems, and on top of these systems, our new layer of digitization, etc., that has to be placed. Because even if we come up with digital solution, my new layer of digitization has to sit on the core banking platform and this legacy systems. There is where I see challenges which are coming in. Now, as I understand, most of the top banks are already in process of upgrading their legacy systems. And they have their again own challenges because of our IT partners agility and whatnot. These challenges will be still there, and this is true for all 4 or 5 top banks with whom I have gathered knowledge. Now, on top of this, when digital banking or digitization comes into picture, Say for example, I'll give you another example of GST. We have been very intensively working with Signet for rollout of GST solutions, which is kind of a revolutionary thing in India. If customers' data has to be extracted and analyzed to the utmost accuracy, digital our GST data is going to be the most important data. However, again, if you see challenges, there are other challenges. Now, these challenges are not related to systems, but these are challenges related to processes. How does customer get OTP? Whether customer knows his OTP, whether customer has access to GST portal, all these challenges are there. So there are two kinds of challenges. One is whether my bank systems are ready and whether my customers are ready. Now, over a period of time, and this is the trust I have in my or our new generation. And when I say new generation, I am more focusing on retail lending side. When they will come into the market, they are more digital savvy, and hence adoption of all these digital solutions will be very quicker. It will be quicker by them rather than previous generations. This is where I see digital adoption and digital banking actually getting changed. But these both aspects, that is the readiness of the banking systems and readiness of the customers, has to go hand in hand, and then only we will actually see the digital revolutionary digitization in India.
Fair. I think these are good points or great points, and I think that given you are coming from a bank which I think maybe the disbursing the largest amount of loan in the country, I think I can totally get that. And maybe customers, maybe my view is also that while customers are getting treated honestly differently by the market, they may be changing. Maybe the challenge you said about core banking and other places, I think I've gone through it a lot of time. I spent almost good 15-18 years of my life replacing or upgrading or all of that on core banking side. It does take a lot of time. And maybe my view is that maybe we don't need another core banking. If savings account and current account has to be treated differently, let's treat them differently. Let's have it something else. Why should we have in same core banking, right? We need to go back to maybe the US approach where everything is best of the breed. And we build it for digital journeys, and maybe only for fund transfers and something else you actually have to integrate with the current platform. Otherwise, you can always pump it from outside. But anyway, I think those are approaches which I think we need to start questioning. That can we do we need to live with this legacy, or these legacy also came back, and when they came, they were saying that everything else was legacy, right? So everybody becomes legacy very soon, right? So with this, maybe Neeraj sir, from your perspective, maybe a quick introduction about yourself and your organization. And since we heard about bit of a GST, maybe some flavor of that will be good. And then you can give your views on digital transformation on a real practical way, right? No gyan, real practical one.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to do that. So I'm Neeraj Singh, and I'm Managing Director of Signet Infotech. Signet Infotech is a IT services and solutions and product company based out of Ahmedabad, but having offices across the globe. And my journey actually in terms of indirect tax and in terms of digitization started 21 years back when actually we started Signet. It was for a transformational application, which was not being taken care by any accounting solution or ERP solution at that particular time. But somehow we kind of diverted into other directions. And 5 years back, GST brought us back into the core business. So what I understand very well is business. What I understand quite well is implementation of technology into business. And what I have expertise is in kind of defining what type of technology architectures should actually be implemented by organizations to have a complete digital journey into it. And the experience that we got in terms of implementing this type of architectures into a tech solutions has also kind of now moved towards the fintech solutions. And that is where a different kind of fintech solutions in terms of loan originations or in terms of LMS or in terms of other aspects and how you should build it and how you approach it, that is extremely important. Now, what Rahul said and what Samir said was a music to my ears very clearly, because since last many years, and this was my first example that when I was when GST started, I had interaction with ICICI Bank and HDFC and Kotak, and I am lucky enough to be a service provider to HDFC, Kotak, Axis, Yes, Indus, and IDFC. So I understand what type of platforms and what type of systems they work onto it. And the interesting point came to me was that the core banking solutions, and I had made a comment at that particular time that CBS would be wiped out in coming few years. And this was something I have been talking on to the same line for many years. And initially it was taken as a joke. And when now it comes from Rahul and Samir, it's literally music to my ear. So the type of approach, and this is into the tech stack platform that we have been kind of propagating and advancing and kind of promoting to everybody and across the globe, is that instead of having a critical application, the time has come to move towards what the modern technology companies are doing. So we were doing a workshop at Uber, and the type of approach they take is that they have a kind of a fintech warehouse, data warehouse, and they have a tech stack data warehouse. And on these two warehouses, all the data kind of will be pulled in, and whatever digitization applications or whatever different applications you want to build onto it, you build on top of it. So using hyper automation, using the transformational tools, using the best in the line technologies, you come up with the solutions by which you give the accessibility of the data either to the compliance functions or to the tax functions or to the accounts functions or to the operations, whoever requires that particular information into the fastest possible time with the least possible of hierarchy and least possible of kind of complications into it. At the same time, the most important factor is your customers. And what Samir said was actually a surprise to me, that actual lending by the banks is only 2% in terms of digitization, was a very surprise to me. It was kind of an unbelievable number for me. And if we want to transfer into a complete digital model, like some of the fintech companies have come up with a unique applications, and the type of UI and UX that they have come up with is so easy for somebody to use it. So unless and until our banking sector really comes up with those kind of solutions or those kind of user experience, it is going to be very, very challenging in terms of consumption of digital journeys. So this is an area where even if we do digitization, but if it's not ease of operations or it's not ease of use into the same, it is going to be very challenging. Now, what is being seen by a consumer into his app is something very different than what actually happens at the background. And a kind of a API first approach, a kind of a digital first approach in terms of everything that you do from today onwards definitely helps in kind of ensuring that the customer experience is exceptional. At the same time, you are putting in enough amount of futuristic technology at the back end, that whatever transition you need to do in terms of technology, that also happens at the bank. And the banking sector is going to get a major transformational boost, wherein they will also have to modernize. They will have to come up with the new technology solution and adoption of it. They will have to come up with new products and services as well. At the same time, on the back end, continuously modernize the legacy system. And these two have to work in parallel. And as an IT company, this type of things are a big, big opportunity for all organizations. But the most important is the kind of journey that you embark upon it, a short-term and a long-term goal kind of clearly decided, and the right type of approach and the tools that you use into it is going to benefit in a much better way. So this is a kind of a initial thoughts in terms of how the digital transformation will work and how one should approach onto the same area.
I think this is great point. Maybe one thought from my side, right? I think everybody blames technology to be the biggest issue, right? But the respect technology guys have or had in banks is in most of the time is close to zero. I have been part of technology team, and I had to prove it to them every time that technology is pure business. And a lot of times the thought process is that I remember at one time I was like literally ejected from a treasury room. I used to run treasury from a technology perspective in those days, and I had implemented some systems. And the dealers thought that the typically support ka banda kaise, how can he enter my office, right? I said, boss, this is too much. But that's how the world has been, that disrespecting the technology all the time, still saying legacy. I think and I have been on business roles as well. So I think the challenge is business guys don't want to understand technology enough to utilize it. But it's easy to blame, right? I think dunya mein victim is the easiest way to be there, right? I am the victim, right? I think the change has to be brought. The technology teams also have to understand business, and business teams have to understand technology, and operations also. I think the other challenge which also we will face is that most of these roles are also obliterating, right? You like it or not. When we say account aggregator is coming, some roles are going. When you say maybe more data insights are coming from GST, some more manual validation and physical checks will go away. Now, all of that will result in maybe the banking domain retaining maybe the best of the talent for sure. I would totally agree to that. That best of the talent will still be there. But most of the mediocre process owners who would just not be changing with time will actually not be in the role, right? It's like this: when Geo started account opening digitally, and I remember 5-6 years back, I always would find it difficult to sign on one document. So I will always have one SIM, right? On that day I bought 4 because all I had to do was thumb and done, right? So the point is, I think the world is going to be very different. Back offices will go away. Now in this world, and so maybe I say it's just an opinion that is technology or systems or people. Maybe I mean, let's look at another view. I don't know how many boards have what do you say, knowledgeable digital guys on board, right? The board is full of HR guys, lawyers, CAs, all kind of guys, right? Who will, and they will be also part of the IT strategy team also, right? Saying that they will be reviewing the IT strategy, where they neither know I nor know T. And of course, there's no digital strategy review, right? There's IT strategy, right? There's a huge gap right now. I think good news I see is that some of the banks, including HDFC and ICICI, have started having digital heads in the boards. We also seen that analysts which review the banks now are also asking these tough questions and sort of giving their feedback on digital side. I think that's a big change. But anyway, let's move to the pointer on digital lending itself. Now we look at OCEN coming up and account aggregator. Account aggregator, I have been talking about it coming for 5 years, right? It apna time aayega type. So 2016 onwards, it's coming. But I think it looks very close now. And I do see that it will be in the limelight. OCEN has been taking more time. I think structurally it has an issue. It has to have an anchor organization like a NLCI, National Lending Corporation of India, who will run this API stack rather than point-to-point connection. But anyway, GST is there and more data points are happening, coming up, right? So how are banks will get ready for it? And then how would they be able to utilize so much of changing infrastructure, because the policies have to be changed, the programs, the lending credit approvals frameworks will change, right? So how would banks adopt to so much of change in this market? And that question, Rahul, is from you to you, because I think you would be utilizing the most of it, and your credit policies will actually accrue all of these changes as well. So maybe it will be good guideline for everybody else in the market to adopt what you're thinking.
So Samir, from policy perspective, let's say for example, OCEN and account aggregator. Policy perspective, the policies will be tweaked to the extent that the accurate data which is coming in, and I don't have to verify the documents or the fraud checks which we have to carry out. Those I do not have to carry out. So there is a very minor change in terms of policy, in terms of data accuracy. However, from a risk perspective, or that the fraud investigation, etc., there is a major change which we see. And this is going to have or increase our STP journeys many folds. This is one aspect. Second aspect, Samir, is again, as I said, we are live with account aggregator, and our volumes are not so encouraging because this industry is still evolving, and I foresee the growth over a period of few years or months. Again, as I said, that let's say, for example, account aggregator is a concept which technologically is easy to understand for bankers. But for non-bankers, it is very difficult to understand what is actually account aggregator and how it is going to help them. If I try to tell this to my father, he may never understand. And first of all, I have scared him of that, you don't use technology because there are so many frauds which are happening on mobile. So any OTP or anything, any financial transaction coming on mobile, you will not carry it out without discussing this with me. So now this is the kind of environment with which we are working. I'll give you another example. I was working, I was working with ICICI Bank at that point of time, and my colleague said, "Arey, my wife doesn't know her PAN number." Now we know our PAN number by heart because maybe we are working in banking industry, but she was not working. Now, this is kind of education or financial education people have in India. This is the kind of depth of knowledge about what is happening in financial domain people have. If I go and try to explain what is account aggregator, please download this app, etc., etc., there will be teething challenges for the generation who has actually crossed maybe 40 years. However, I rely on people or my new customers who are in the age of 22 to 30 or 35, who are actually who maybe you can term them as millennials. They are very savvy, and they will quickly download and they will try to understand how I will download this, what will be linkage, etc., etc., and how data will transfer. So from that angle, Samir, I feel that yes, there will be mixed response by the market, and as banking platforms also will support and adopt this particular technology, there will be exponential growth. Currently there are, I understand, there are certain institutions which have not gone live with OCAN or account aggregator platform, but yes, as soon as they will also come and the sales team will start pushing and explaining customers, there will be growth. This is same again similar example which I gave as GST. When I use Signet, I cannot have adoption because there are certain teething challenges for customers to understand how my data will be shared, whether it will be secured or not, whether I should share my OTP or not. All these questions will come in, and then at that point of time, customer education is very much important.
No, I think this is good. This is good. And from your perspective, let's say if the cost of, let's say, lending to the retail customers a loan of, let's say, 2 lakh rupees to 3 lakh rupees, technically in India on in a physical or even part digital environment is 5 to 8,000 rupees, right? Minimum. Do you see a dramatic shift in that with it moving more close to maybe 1,000 rupees or lesser as we go more and more digital, or you see that number still being same, it's not coming down dramatically?
Not coming down dramatically in coming 1 or 2, 3 years. Yes, it will come definitely down dramatically, because not only on this structure, but there are various other evolutions which are happening. Say for example, currently the cost of acquisition of new to bank customers is the highest. Now everybody, not only HDFC Bank, but everybody in industry is trying to understand how do we give STP loans to customers, not only for these people, but for NTB also. So there are various, acquisition of data, analytics, which we are running in. And based on that, the combination and amalgamation of all these approaches is going to bring down the cost dramatically. You mentioned about certain cost numbers. I would not like to comment because my costs are a bit lower than the industry standard. But yes, I definitely see a dramatic shift or a dramatic reduction in the cost over a period of few years.
Yeah, I think this is good. This is good. And I think what will happen, my take, and we saw the message from RBI, I think yesterday, that they're allowing maybe NBFC and others, they are also allowing fintechs and everybody else to pull bureau data. So what will happen is similarly, I think the framework for account aggregator will get opened up generically to everyone somewhere. Right now, it's only for regulated entity, and then you'll see a TV ad by some player, and he will teach everyone, and then everybody else will actually use it. So I think I can almost see a splash maybe a few months down the line by somebody spending maybe $50 million or $5 million educating the country on the usage, right? So I think we'll see how it goes from there.
Samir, so that is the point where, I had always doubt. I will tell you why I had always doubt about this particular concept. As a banker, I know what is account aggregator, but I will not download it until and unless I am in need of a loan facility. I will not just download it, keep it downloaded, occupy my space, mobile, whatever, and I will not use it. I will not do it. Only and only when people will need a credit facility, at that point of time, somebody has to guide, and if there is, there is an intervention of sales team who will, or bank representative who will explain the customer that, okay, now this is the concept, and if you download it, you don't have to give me your banking statement, and maybe instead of giving you loan in 1 day, I will give you loan in 2 hours. Okay, when I explain this to customer and educate him, then only customer will actually download and adopt it. So I somehow disagree that yes, tomorrow some account aggregator come and make advertisement. What is the driving force for a customer or a normal citizen to just download and evaluate, experiment with it? I don't see that happening.
A fair point. I think I'm a bit old, right? I'm the wrong side of 50 now. And I can tell you that I find it very difficult to track my insurance policies and this policy. And then, and I'm not rich, right? I'm just saying that over a period of time, you make enough stupidities, you invest in wrong places, right places, somewhere the email ID is different. So to the wealth management firm, or maybe the mutual fund guys give you 2 separate statements. You have to upload into some platform like IndWealth and then figure this out. I think there's a need for India to know what is their balance, right? Today, knowing balance is impossible, right? You download and you do that, by the time you get irritated. I would rather work hard and make that extra 50,000 rupees I can make by doing work. I think this is more on the wealth side, which will come up. But anyway, Neeraj sir, you have been contributing a lot from a GST side. So how do you see, with so much of new generation data points coming up, how can lending be transformed? And you can take a view both from a provider and also as somebody who's working closely with banks on digitizing the journey.
So I would put it across, GST, as far as the data point is concerned, has completely revolutionized the aspects of the concurrent real-time data available for a decision making. Because today I want to go and see what is the last month sales or a last quarter sales of a client, or it's like a kind of somebody who's asked for some loan. I can get that data provided he gives the consent. So with the account aggregator ecosystem coming in, and with whatever kind of RBI clarification yesterday onto the bureau point, I think very exciting times are ahead into it. And we had done a kind of a survey with the CFOs, and we had asked them, okay, what is the importance of the GST data in terms of kind of your payments to your vendors? This was a very different question, and it is kind of not related directly to lending, but it has a great importance in terms of lending. And before the GST ecosystem or a GST regime came in, that was around 3 to 5% was the weightage on which they were giving to compliance. And today the weightage on compliance is nearly 40%. So nobody wants to pay to a vendor unless and until he is compliant onto the GST data. And similarly, when you take it from a lender's perspective, unless and until a lender really evaluates a GST data of somebody, they would not like to lend them at a preferred rate or a advantageous rates. So the GST data has become a major tracking point or a decision making point in terms of how you lend to a person. Now look at it with the real-time data of the bank statements available with the OCEN framework. If it matures out and that availability of data from a different sources is available into a certain format, if you get the account aggregator ecosystem perfectly in place, then you get the balance points. What we are talking about today is processing data in kind of a white box or a kind of a environment wherein you are not even kind of giving the access of the data to a lender, but you start providing them scores around it by which they can actually take the decisions much quicker and much faster. And this entire digitization process, and going back to your earlier point in terms of how it will kind of reduce the cost to a lender. So all these individual data points are available. You have the APIs for the banking sector. You have the kind of GST APIs available. Then the bureau credit score will be available. Then you kind of club it with e-stamping and those kind of thing which is now available into multiple different states. You add the e-KYC platforms onto it, and you are literally creating your small metaverse kind of environment wherein the entire banking aspects could be digital in nature, and you may have a future absolutely digital banks wherein the experience shift to a level wherein you are getting a banking experience but digitally, and everything happens digitally, and this will drastically reduce down the cost in terms of acquisition of the client. Now, having a vision to achieve all this is very good. Wanting to do it, everybody wants to do it. And today, very interesting concept. I met one particular bank yesterday in Ahmedabad itself, and they said that we don't have any shortage of funds in terms of digitizing, but our challenge is where to start from, how to go about it, and actually what we should do first and what we should do second is the biggest challenge for it. And that is an area that the banks really need to focus on to it. Means instead of having too many systems from different areas, they need to actually work out how the systems will interact, talk to each other, and how the uniform platforms will come in, because that's going to be the biggest challenge. And one particular talk means, like, I've been advocating people in each of my seminars, webinars, or trainings, that you need to have single source of truth for the data. And when I ask a banker today, or when I ask anybody onto that side, in your entire ecosystem of all your systems, what is the single source of truth? Is it your CBS, which is the single source of truth? And that actually does not happen today. So these are the kind of areas which needs much more detailed deliberations. But using the current of digitization platforms available, using the digitization tools available, using hyper automation in a big way, using the robotic process automation, because that kind of automates certain amount of your process or kind of makes multiple systems talk to each other. So that is something different kind of areas which can actually help you in terms of automating your process. And I think that's the approach we kind of guide our clients, or we guide multiple different prospects to adopt to ensure that the automation happens quickly. And RPA is one way of automating. There are multiple different approaches to automate it, and including those kind of a complete ecosystem and going towards a hyper automation in terms of automation can really streamline a lot of your manual processes and take you towards having a single source of truth as far as your data is concerned. So this is a kind of a objective which should be there with any institution who wants to digitize.
Right, and maybe Neeraj sir, you quickly want to talk about this solution, right? Because you are offering this for everybody who's going to give a feedback. And actually, मैं in RPA world, RPA से डर नहीं लगता, उसके license से डर लगता, right? I think RPA licenses are so expensive that people find it better sometimes to use manual work rather than to go for license, right? So they buy it only for specific use and don't try to do that. So maybe you want to quickly talk about the RPA tool.
I think we have kind of completely institutionalized the licensing. So what we are saying is that you have when we talk about RPA bots, there are two major areas. One is your bot designer and one is your bot executor. A bot designer is something on somebody is going to use technically and kind of design how the bot will perform. And then you have bot executors, which you need to deploy on your servers, on your machines, or wherever the person is going to use it. And then the schedulers will be there into the bot executors. Now, what we have done with multiple of our large clients is that we have provided them unlimited bot executors. So you have designed a process, you have automated it, and as many executors as you want, we will give you. We will just talk about a holistic corporate license once in a year, and unlimited bots you can use to kind of automate your process. And this is a kind of a major advantage for a lot of our clients, because they do not have to worry and kind of talk about each bot license, whether I would use it or I should give it to a person, I should not give it to a person. And it really creates a major hassle around it. So that is something we have kind of streamlined a lot and automated from our end.
No, and good that you're distributing as part. So anybody who is giving a feedback back to us will get details of it, and they can use it in their real world. These bots, and there's a free trial license made available. And let's come back to the pointer. I think there are some questions coming up as well from the groups, and I saw a question coming from Saurabh. Maybe Saurabh, you want to ask your question on the partnership between fintechs and banks, and maybe that question specifically that's for you, Rahul. You want to ask that, Saurabh?
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes.
Wonderful. So again, Happy New Year, everyone. It's the first meeting, and thank you, Digital Fit, Samir and team, for bringing all of us together. And especially during these times, it's much more important that we connect, communicate, and work together. So my question there again is similar. That of course, we're all trying to build solutions, help each other, and make life easier for our end customers, right? And what Neeraj has also shared is extremely valuable in terms of learning for us, newer, businesses and solution providers. So my question there is, what sort of challenges do we need to also keep in mind? Because typically we get all excited, we build something and we think it's going to change the world. But the challenge is not that it can just ready and go, plug and play, right? I mean, we have to consider a few things. And I'm asking this to Rahul, but definitely Neeraj has had much more experience on this side, from the other side, of few of these things that we need to keep in mind. I mean, we approach with a solution, but what are those pitfalls, the pros and cons that we should keep at the back of our mind before we put out a solution? Because it should not be like we go approach a bank, a great solution, we put it, but there are certain other factors to also come.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rahul, you want to go first?
Yes. So Saurav, I will take that question. I will give you answer in a very generic aspect, and I will not be very HDFC Bank specific. The generic answer and the first question you asked, what it asked is what is that you should look at. First question you should look at is whether you are late. I remember visiting one of the Australian vendor. They had partnered with Malaysian entity, and some Indian representatives were also there, and they gave me some solutions, and we spent some time of nearly 1.5 hours understanding their technology solutions. Unfortunately, everything was already implemented in HDFC Bank. So first is whether you are late. The startup, it should not happen that you have already invested and the startup should not end up becoming Me Too company. It has to be an innovative idea. It has to be a market changer, and then only maybe it will have a value, or otherwise it will have a value where the bank has not yet gone into digitization. Say for example, Neeraj was giving example, the bank was not knowing how to spend money in digitization. Maybe there you can approach and start small, take small steps and start business with such banks. This is first aspect. Second aspect is banks like us are very careful about regulations with respect to digitization. Within first few minutes, banks like us questions like whether your data is in India. Okay, if we share any data, then who are your third party vendors, whether you are the developers or you are getting into contact with others, whether my data is leaving India, how is the entire trail of data. So those are such questions where we are very careful. And then rest is about your overall, product solution, how user friendly the solution will be, how easy it will be implementable. These are the few questions we ask, but the most important is whether this is innovative idea, whether it is new, and whether it is actually going to change the banking. So that's it. Sort of, I hope I have answered your question.
Some points from my side, sir. So first and foremost is that when you go with a new idea, be ready to fail fast. So if you kind of create just a mock-up or a HTML of it and go and show to few of your client friends, so that will actually give you a lot of feedback and lot of interesting insights, and you will not end up kind of wasting a lot of development time into the whole process. Today, building applications is much quicker, much faster than what it used to be maybe 3 years back or 5 years back. So that is something, even if you kind of go towards a new idea, be ready to be getting the right feedback and be ready to fail fast if that needs to be done. Second point is working with maybe HDFC Bank or the largest of the organizations across India. And if I say like from the NSE top 10 companies, 5 of them are our customers. The biggest challenge is getting the InfoSec approval from there. So means like you may have the most brilliant idea, you may get the buy-in from the bank, you may kind of even get all the approvals, POs, everything in place. But getting the info security approval is going to be the biggest challenge into the process. And unless and until as an organization, you are trained and kind of tuned in terms of getting that InfoSec approvals from the large corporates, that is going to be kind of a biggest challenge. So one of the largest companies in the world, means like we got a InfoSec requirement from them recently, and that runs into 500 pages. So that's the kind of response that we need to provide in terms of getting the approval as a vendor. So these are the types of some challenges which definitely you need to take care if you are going to be a technology service provider in fintech or in any other areas to the large corporates. So these are some kind of guidelines I would want you to be clear about.
And maybe the one pointer is that we get used to working with too many stakeholders, right? So we work with banks and we work with fintechs also. So one of my team member, which is fresh to us, he says, "Yaar, pure saal se we were working with a bank, and they will always push us. Suddenly we were partners and suddenly we are vendors, right? Every day in the morning and evening there will be change, right? Sometimes they, अरे यार कर तू यार अपन साथ में करेंगे बताओ शाम तक ओ यार क्यों नहीं किया मैंने तुम्हें कल 2 दिन से बताया था." Whereas I mean, so it's awkward. Whereas fintech is very different. They basically will come, take advice, and go and deploy it also, right? By the time you come back, they would have done some deployment and come back and advise saying, "Ye ho gaya hai, what next do we need?" So it's a very different world. But get used to it. There are too many stakeholders, and maybe the location difference. Right now, for few clients, we are running with the location difference. While in a fintech world, you can live with maybe a remote advisory, but in a banking world, I think the travel is very, very crucial. I think physical connections are very crucial, and you don't even know the political powers, right, where they lie. Who is going to be sort of, and this is the real ones. I'm not trying to feign it. It existed somewhere. Maybe I was a CTO. I would say, "Agar mere ko nahi batayega, to main karunga nahi," right? So it is always there. It's nothing new. It's all human tendencies which existed, right? So maybe I think there's more questions coming up.
Yes.
Maybe from a pure, I mean, one of the questions which has come up is that we talk so much about digital lending, which is from a retail perspective, and we do, and that also in unsecured more so, and bit of it in MSME. How do we go and make these changes also in the secured lending side, where the fintechs have not been able to evolve much because that's not their core area, and the banks are not evolving because they don't have a role model to copy, right? So how do banks digitize it more? Let's say, for example, home loans, right? How do you ensure that the journeys for customers get fully digitized? And even when most of the properties are common by nature, right? In a building, Oberoi is Oberoi, right? There, you know what to do. So how do you digitize that secured lending? I think that's one question I was getting. I know I'm running short of time very soon, but maybe Rahul from your side, or maybe Neeraj from this side, anybody can answer this question. How will it go forward?
Should I answer that, Neeraj?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah.
So, Samir, the biggest challenge in digitization is always, and not only this is about unsecured loans, but even, sorry, not only in secured loans, but even unsecured loans, the biggest challenge is the seamless journey. Today, if I have to give a credit facility to NTB customer, there are various data points which are available. Say, for example, your Aadhaar, then tele-verification, your Vodafone will give certain validations, and other players are also there. The challenge is the kind of OTPs and validations we are getting. It is going to become a fragmented journey, and customer quickly loses out interest. And there, there has to be some assisted journey over a period of time. As I understand, Indian government and financial institute, I mean regulation, is taking steps for seamless journeys. Okay, this challenge will be also addressed in 2 to 3 years. This is what I have faith in the in our government as well as regulators. Unless and until I don't see a seamless journey, all data being provided without hassles, this looks difficult. You talked about example like Rahejas and Oberoids, but what is the percentage of these kind of real estate players? These are less than maybe 1%. But what about 99% of the cases I will be getting? I don't have a structured data in with me. So when I get this structured data from authentic source, then only we will be able to give such seamless journeys or seamless experience to the customers.
No, phenomenal. Just one pointer, Neeraj sir, before you go ahead, one pointer, please share your feedback. Anybody who gives the feedback will get access to our bots, as we spoke about. And also, I think maybe we'll plan a session for GST for you specifically, because that, I think the knowledge is still limited, and the kind of data which is available is phenomenal. I think we'll do that as well if you're really interested, your organization is really interested on that. So keep giving feedback. We are getting a lot of them, but it will be good to have your feedback as well. And because we keep doing it, feedback will be good. Neeraj sir, over to you.
Yeah, so what Rahul said, I just want to add on few points onto it. First and foremost, the kind of digitization initiations are happening from both ends, private sector and the government itself. So there are a lot of records, informations, documents, which is constantly being digitized by the government. And once a DigiLocker kind of a systems becomes more advanced and all this information is available from a single point of it, then a structured approach of digitizing this loan journeys would become much more easier, because then the banks do not have to go and scrutinize everything from their end in detail, and they will get lot of scrutinized information available from the right kind of sources, and that would be much more helpful. So that is something. This is, I would say, the fastest changes into all these areas I've seen in last 3 to 5 years, and I am expecting that much more change will come in next 2 to 3 years. So you will see a definite major difference in terms of the automation and digitization of any kind of loan journey. And something which is happening much faster is onto the current kind of a journeys, maybe bill discounting and those areas where a lot of major action will happen much faster. But even onto the property loans and other areas, I think a lot of new innovation will come in quickly.
Okay, this is great. I think Rahul, you have a question. You go ahead and ask. I think you reached out, and I mean, if I read this question, it will be longer. You go ahead and ask a question. That will be better. Rahul, go ahead. Rahul Patil.
Yeah. So my questions are especially to Mr. Rahul Renke. See, I'm also in a bank, and we are in the midst of digitizing the STP journeys for new to be E2B customers for all loan categories, right from PL, housing, SME, agri, etc. So you would also be aware of the government's national portal Diktat. So they are asking that all the banks need to, get the leads from the national portal. And if our BRE says that the customer is eligible for a loan with our bank, then we need to get that lead pulled into our LPS and do the sanctioning and the disbursement instantly. Now, I understand for small ticket size loans, like for personal loans, it is possible I can do a check with CIBIL I can, get the documents digitally signed using NESL. I can get it stamped using legality, do some basic DRE checks and disburse loan. But for a large infrastructure loan like agri infrastructure finance or agri marketing infrastructure finance or ACABC or Stand Up India, how can we do an instant disbursement when government says do it?
You are asking IPR related question of HDFC Bank. I will try to give generic answer to Rahul. Rahul, first of all, I do not feel any challenge with respect to your ETB customers. Do you feel there is issues with your ETB customers also, that you cannot provide instantaneous loan facilities or disbursement to your ETB customers?
No, of course, we can do that, but instant means how instant? Like there has to be a defined tag, right? Because even my ETB customers, I have to do multiple checks, do customer due diligence, and then do field visits because the quantum of loan size are not like 50,000. It's more in excess of 25 lakh, 50 lakh, 1 crore sometimes. So,
okay. So Rahul, for want of time, I will quickly give you answer. And this is not something related to HDFC Bank's IPR, so I can share this. Most top banks are what they are doing is they are creating a pool of customers whom we can instantaneously provide loan facilities. Okay, we do all the checks beforehand, and every month we have set of customers. Say for example, out of my 5 crore customers, I have 1 or maybe 10 lakh customers. If they come, I can give them loan facility without validations because I have done the validations beforehand. So I create a pool of, let's say, 10 lakh such customers. I upload that data in my one of the system. If such customer comes for asking loan facility, I just validate with whether this customer belongs to my 10 lakh customers database. If yes, I immediately give loan facility within few seconds. Maybe it is a matter of only few clicks, and within 10 seconds, the customer can be given loan facility.
And I would say, Rahul, just to add to you that, so I experienced it today. Means like today, 2 of the large private banks were at our place in the morning, and we have our facilities with one particular bank, but the other bank came in, and they had also done all our checks pre-hand and without any additional document required. They gave us a kind of multiple different offers, and that could be implemented instantaneously. So they were that ready because the current account was there with them particular bank. So they had done this type of pre-checks already and very ready with the type of information that was there. Now, how did they get all the information? That's a separate question, but they were very, very ready.
And I'll tell you a real experience that the best of the banks in the country, and it's not HDFC Bank, I'm not trying to point it towards you. I actually wanted to open a current account, and it took me some multiple reminders and all. Finally, I had to sign this thick a set of documents to prove that I'm a human being and I run a company, right? This thick a document. And then after submitting all of that, which took around good 7 to 8 days because iterating you have to fill. And then God knows why we need a stamp, right? I don't know what does that 60 rupees stamp got to do with the bankers, right? 60 rupees stamp is available on the road everywhere. But I think some guys out there does not know that it is 60 rupees. They want to make it compulsory. So we went to the market, got it done, stamped it, and then they wanted the signatory also to have a separate stamp. We got it done as well. So I think there's a different amount of change required. It's nothing to do with technology. I think mindset is still there that पहले से ऐसा ही हो रहा है होने दो यार. I mean, मेरा तो customer भरेगा, front end office guy will die. Somebody will die doing it. The sales guy was embarrassed, saying that I don't know why they are not pulling from the portal. It's all available, but they wanted everything to be downloaded, everything to be signed manually, and it was hilarious, right? So, any which way, I think we got a lot of insights from Rahul and Neeraj from your side, and I think we also got a lot of questions coming up. Thanks, guys, for that. Maybe before we close, and please keep giving your feedback. We'll be very happy to do next sessions differently if that's what is required. Maybe before we close, Rahul, from your perspective, what should people do in this utterly changing world where the roles and responsibilities and everything keeps shifting? How do people survive and thrive? And maybe the same question to you, Neeraj, from a different angle. When we are in digital journey and maybe you are part of a technology company, how do you change? Because customers are no longer looking at number of resources. They're looking at, can you solve my problem differently, right? So yeah, Rahul, to you, how do people sustain their life and maybe grow?
So, Samir, though this is a very generic question and I don't have any, particular answer, but the basic, as I gave the answer earlier also, for fintechs and for banks, for both, and for our technology partners, what is the USP? That is what we have to identify, and whether we are not late in the market. We should not be late entrants. Otherwise, your market share is already
No,
taken by
Rahul,
somebody else.
that question was not from a fintech perspective. I'm saying as an individual,
Okay.
how do employees retain their jobs and sustain, because because of transformation, their roles are also changing, right? I actually was for humans.
Okay. I never thought of this question, Samir. Fortunately, how do I survive and how do I be in competition? But the only thing is, you keep on adopting change. That is the only, mantra for the life. My personal experience, I was part of technology team, and then now today I am part of credit team. I intentionally changed my role, and I intentionally evolved my knowledge over a period of time. I have plethora of various domains where I carry expertise now. I do not know how it will be, in near future, be in the backdrop of machine learning and AI. That is again a very difficult subject, and people get finicky when we talked about it, when we say that, okay, machine learning is going to take or replace human judgment. But yes, the only survival will be, you keep on upgrading your knowledge and keep on changing domains, etc., so that you get expertise in multiple domains. That is what I feel.
So
Thank you.
from my side,
Yes.
Samir, very simple. People in technology field are the blessed ones as on today. I think this pandemic has blessed them beyond a point. There are no deaths of jobs or no shortage of jobs. It's only kind of how do you find the people with the right skill is the biggest challenge. So that's something. Training and learning is going to be the most critical area. So self-learning, self-training, and organization learning and training are going to be critical. And third and most important thing is, okay, this particular pandemic has brought in the biggest digital transformation that I have seen in my lifetime. And that is something which is going to change our lives permanently and in a very big way. So whatever changes we're seeing today are just the foundation stones, and we'll see a far bigger change coming in. But very honestly, today, too many jobs are available. Very few people in the IT field who are there to do that jobs. That's a reality. And things would only look upwards from here onwards.
Thank you, Rahul, and thank you, Neeraj, for guiding.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Rahul. Thanks,
Thank you,
Samir.
Samir.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you,
And thanks
Neeraj.
everyone for
Thank you,
joining us.
everybody.
We'll be back with the next webinar very soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.